Hey, Emily, Tommy Givens here, professor of the course. Want to send along a video reply here in week one. Gives me a chance to say hello a little more directly and give you some feedback too on what you've written here in week one, which is really good in both response forums. So I just want to highlight a few things that I thought were especially insightful and set you up well to track with some of the developments that are deeper into Matthew's gospel. First of all, I like that you've picked up on this language of curse from Deuteronomy and elsewhere because it's not really language that we quite know what to do with, I don't think, in our usual patterns of speech and understanding today. But it's actually a really important concept in the Bible because it communicates how people experience consequences for the ways that they defy God's law, the ways that they're unjust towards each other, towards others, the way that they succumb to idolatry in search of security or prosperity from other political powers and their deities. And these curses, they they accumulate over time. They mean sort of intergenerational suffering. And that's a key for making sense of the drama of Israel's life over generations, all the way until Jesus's generation and Matthew. His generation has inherited curses, the consequences of the disobedience of their ancestors, patterns of injustice that they are apt to perpetuate. So when John calls the people to repent at the Jordan and to be baptized for the forgiveness of sins, that's what is involved, repenting of these patterns of injustice and to be forgiven for the sins that have brought about these curses over generations. Forgiveness then means relief from the consequences of that injustice, relief in the form of the healing of their bodies, of their relationships with each other, the relationships with land, their relationships with foreign peoples, their relationships even with animals. So just glad that you picked up on that. And you also noted the significance of land. I love the way you sort of tried to get at this, the tension here. Israel is a land, but is also a people given this land, and the people can be scattered. And that's right. So Israel is not sort of separable, at least in terms of who it is from the land, but they remain who they are even when they are scattered from that land, even as they remember that land as their own and long to return there for peace to be established there, to grow from there, to spread throughout the earth. So Israel and land are sort of inextricable from one another, even if Israel remains itself when it lives outside of that land and uh, with hopes related to that land. So that's also relevant to Matthew because Jesus himself experiences a short exile, you might say, by fleeing to Egypt with his family at the beginning of the narrative, and then really concentrates his work in the land, specifically in the Jewish settlements in the land. And that indicates to us that the land itself holds something of Israel's memory and its promise, so that what Jesus does there has ramifications for everywhere else. What he does there is important because that place bears a kind of particular testimony or power uh, from God's revelation there and God's own attachment to that place in the memory of the people. So he's going to say at one point to his newly appointed 12 apostles not to go down any roads leading to Gentiles or Gentile cities or in any city of the Samaritans, which is part of Israel, but not the Jewish remnant that's living in the promised land, but to go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, that Jewish remnant that is living in the promised land in Jesus's day. That's where his apostles' kingdom work is to focus. And that indicates to us that that place is particularly powerful for who Jesus is, for how the kingdom is coming from heaven, and therefore for the hope of exiles as well as other peoples that live around the world, other places as well. Also got some great stuff here in the genealogy. I think I just want to note that you rightly treat the genealogy as sort of evocative. It summons particular memories from Israel's past. It doesn't spell them out explicitly, but gains its power partly by the way it mobilizes those memories poetically. You talk about Abraham, and especially this kind of signature moment of Abraham with the binding of Isaac, which the structure of the genealogy seems to foreground. And we could say something similar about all the names of the genealogy, though some of them certainly bear more weight than others. So that was just an insightful, I think, way of tracking with the genealogy. The way the mothers in the genealogy emphasize the transgressions of some of Israel's fathers of renown, and yet these fathers or the women associated with them are not like disowned because of that, but there's a kind of redemptive horizon to those tragedies of the past by virtue of how they're now remembered in the genealogy of Jesus. So lots of good stuff. You're going to see some of these figures' memory play out in subsequent scenes in the gospel narrative. Jesus is going to have a really tense encounter with a Canaanite mother that's like his own Canaanite mothers in Matthew 15. He's going to sort of negotiate the legacy of David, the throne, the kingdom, David's name in peculiar ways, since David is both a celebrated king, but also someone who committed terrible and violent infidelities. So look forward to sort of tracking with you how all this unfolds in the weeks ahead. Good to get the conversation started, and thanks for your good work in week one.